You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObscast.com.
Hello and welcome back to the TV Obsessive Podcast. This is episode 37 already. I'm Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site, and once again joined by Cameron Crane, executive editor for TVObsessive.com. In the words of Rose, it's going to be one of those kind of nights, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is. We're going to be talking today about the finale of True Detective Night Country, AAA Part 6. Again, no episode titles on these, which we've noted before. So I'll be digging into that in the latter part of the podcast here today. As per usual, first, we'll talk about some things that have caught our eye in the news recently, what we've been watching a bit, and so on. This will go out on Sunday night, right after True Detective airs. So that's February 18th. We're recording a little bit early, so hopefully nothing happens between now and then that makes us look stupid for not talking about it. But anyway, what caught your eyes in the news this week, Ryan?
Well, what a segue, because something we missed by mere minutes last week when we recorded is the announcement of season 3 of The Bear officially coming
It's
this
true.
June. I mean, this is great because this is, there's so many shows now that our year and a half, 2 year delays in between seasons. This is not going to be 3 seasons of The Bear in 3 summers, and I'm stoked that we're already getting that confirmation.
Yeah, really exciting. Longtime listeners know that we both love the show. We did some episodes on it, when season 2 came out. Went back to season 1 a bit. And yeah, we missed it by an hour or
Yeah,
something, because
maybe.
actually we put out the pod on Friday last week because they were putting out True Detective early, and so I was in the process of getting it edited and all of that, but we'd already recorded, so there wasn't like I could have recorded like something on my own, like, and also the bear.
Yeah. You just ADR yourself into the yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Really looking forward to that. Then I felt bad. I saw some poor sweet soul saying, "Oh, and it says premieres. That means it'll be weekly." And it's like, no, you are actually incorrect.
Yeah,
That's
they've already come out and said we're going to drop it all at once, just like the first.
unfortunately. I think
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, and we'll have to see what else is going on this summer when it comes out, and like where we're at in terms of what we're covering on this and so on. I presume you're going to want to talk about it on here. I am.
absolutely.
Um, Being that's the whole season at once, though, like, it presents a challenge for things like this. Do we cover the whole season at once? Where we could, in theory, still go episode by episode, but the timing just gets odd.
Yeah,
So we'll see how it
I
goes.
remember last summer we sort of made the editorial decision. So I wrote about episode 1,
Yeah,
and then I wrote about episodes 2 through 9,
yeah,
and then I wrote episode 10. It's like, oh my God, we just had to like compile all that meat that happened in 2 through 8 into like 1,500 words, and it just like did not do it service at all.
yeah. I mean, it's not a bad plan in general in trying to approach things released in this way, but with the Bear season 2 in particular, it was kind of like, oh well, that worked, but that means you didn't have the chance to like really dig in on fishes, really dig in on forks, and same thing. We covered it on the pod in a similar sort of way. I think we did the first half of the season and the second half of the season on the pod. So one way or another, though, that's pretty quick, and that's
Yeah,
great. That's
yeah.
great.
I have no doubts, no worries about their writing, about what they'll put together. So yeah, just couldn't be more happier to get that news. There are things that are coming out, much much farther past 2024. We got some of those on the list. Well, the one that really you put on here that really caught my eye is Handmaid's Tale. Um,
Yeah,
this will now be what, almost 3 years in
yeah.
between
Between
seasons when we
between
finally get
seasons.
yeah.
Hmm. Um, this is one, to my understanding, that was delayed because of the strikes. Um, and so they're resuming production and so on. That's the good news. But the prediction is next year. This is going to be 2025 sometime. And that is 3 years between seasons. Of course, speaking for myself, I'm way further behind than that. I don't know about you. Do you watch The Handmaid's Tale?
I am caught up. Um, it there was a for a precipitous dip after season 3. So 4 and 5 to me were not nearly as good as the first 3. But season 5 ended in such a way where I really wanted to see season 6 or how they were going to
Yeah.
wrap this thing up. It was like, oh God, now 3 years literally we're going to be waiting in between this cliffhanger that they left us on.
And so it goes. It's perpetually been on my list as something to get back to because I started watching it when it came out. And at a certain point, I just stopped. Like, I didn't really decide to stop, but if I had to explain it, it kind of felt a little too close to reality for me or something. And it
Yes.
was just depressing me to watch the show. And it was like making me anxious. And I don't know, like arguably it's even closer to reality now, but I don't know. It's a good show. I mean,
Yeah, it is. It is good. And actually, I don't remember if this was referenced here. The sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, called The Testaments, is moving forward and might actually come out the same year as the final season of Handmaid's Tale. So this has been discussed for some time. I think initially it was let's give it a year or year and a half to breathe in between the two. They might come out almost simultaneously.
that would be interesting. Well, or maybe they'll just hold off
Yeah.
until after The Handmaid's Tale. Similar news. So that's the last season of The Handmaid's Tale. We know that. We also got the news just the other day that season 4 of Evil on Paramount Plus is going to be the last season, and this is something that people are disappointed about. Like people involved with the show are disappointed about.
Yeah. There's a great tweet by one of the actors of the show? Like,
yeah,
they like Netflix you up.
yeah, Katja Herbert, who's kind of like the lead.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably the show's multiple
I'm way
leads,
behind. I've seen the pilot of the show and nothing else.
Yeah, it's good. I've been we talked about it down here before, I think. I started watching it maybe this fall, and I haven't caught completely up yet, but I probably will prior to season 4. And then I mean, on the plus side, I guess they're giving them 4 more episodes to wrap it up. So that's something. That's something. I don't know what the chances are in 2024 that Netflix or something actually would pick the show up. Unfortunately, I feel like we've moved beyond that a little bit. It got sufficiently in the zeitgeist for everyone to think, hey, that might happen to anything.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
what does it happen to? Like Manifest, that was a year or two ago. And
Yeah.
then,
Blacklist. That was about it.
well, and you've still got, I also saw something, I didn't put it in our notes, but I saw something this week about Hannibal, um,
Okay.
where Mads Mikkelsen was saying, like, still totally want to do it. Brian Fuller still totally wants to do it. Someday, I think we're going to do it. It's like, there's absolutely no indication that you're going to do
Yeah.
it. There's no indication that any production company is going to order it.
I think even as recently as last year, I thought along these lines that, yeah, this show is too good or has too much of a sort of groundswell of popularity that someone won't pick it up. But now you look at things being cut, things merged, things, you know, the Acme movie being thrown in the trash. Just these things are cutting costs, and no one's just eager to go pick up things and just sure we'll take a chance on it.
Yeah, there have also been some other announcements recently of things being canceled. I didn't compile a comprehensive list. It's interesting as we've been doing this, as you said, this is our 37th episode. And when we started, then it was the writer's strike, then it was the actor's strike. And, we were mostly talking about that. Right now, it seems like there's just a ton of stuff being announced coming up in the future. And there's a ton of stuff that's being announced in terms of cancellations, unfortunately. Maybe not a ton, but again, I didn't compile a comprehensive list. So we're kind of, just to be clear, highlighting the things that really caught our eye, and people can always go read the trades themselves, and so on if you want to get more information.
Oh, where should we go? What about some other things coming up? You see that new X-Men 97 trailer?
Yeah. And did you? I wanted to ask you on this. Did you used to watch the cartoon? Because I did some, but I can't say I was super into
Man, I watch these cartoons.
it.
This is like catnip, man. This is my stuff. I cannot wait for for this. I mean, we got some really interesting Marvel news and trailers this week, but I just cannot wait to feel 13 again and go back to this show.
Yeah, I mean, it is in my mind, being who I am, who is someone who never really got into comic books, although I toyed with it at one point a little bit, and it just didn't didn't grab me the right way. So for me, this is the like origin point when someone mentions X-Men. Like this is the
Yep.
first thing I think of is this animated series from the 90s.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I think of is the live action movie with, Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart and all that
Yeah.
came later. So really interesting. Like, I guess this is going to pick up after that series ended, basically.
Yeah, that's my impression, is that they're going to sort of be maybe some jump in time, but it's sort of in the continuity of that series. Some of the original people are coming back to do the voices. And apparently Theo James, who everyone fell in love with in White Lotus, is playing some sort of secret character that they're keeping under wraps, but they say is a fan favorite. So, hey, this is the stuff I live for. I can't wait for it.
Does that imply that it's a character who wasn't in the cartoon before?
It must be. They're saying fan favorite character that they're keeping a secret. I think the characters that we know of from before are all in the trailer, so I don't know who it would be.
Interesting. Very intriguing. Very intriguing. Other things coming up. We've been on the Suits beat, so I thought I'd hit this just for that reason. They cast Stephen Amell in Suits LA. So some people are happy about this. Other people are less happy. I mean, of course, he made some headlines with the strike over the summer.
Yes.
Known primarily to me as the lead in Arrow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched Arrow.
8 years of Arrow, right? Or something like that. It's a crazy long show.
Arrow, yeah. I stopped watching Arrow at a certain point. All of those CW DC shows I got into, and there was one point where I was up to date on Arrow and the Flash and what else is there? Legends of Tomorrow. And at a certain point I just got kind of worn out and it got
Yeah.
too much multiverse stuff. And maybe even more so, it got too much the recurring trope of the members of the team getting into difficulties because they didn't communicate well, and then at the end deciding that was really a problem. They need to be sure to communicate better in the future, and they all make up, and then they do it again. And I started getting a little frustrated with them.
Oh, I never got into those, but just like I never got into Suits. But this guy's going to have a new life as something, as we know, that has had billions and billions of minutes watched in this past year. So
yeah, his most recent thing was this show about wrestling called Heels. That was on Stars. It got
okay.
canceled, which I heard was quite good, at least from people who are wrestling fans. And that was the one where it was like during the strike, he was upset that he couldn't promote his show. That was Heels. So yeah, I don't know. Suits LA. I mean, I guess he's going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
So,
Lawyer by day, arrow by night. I mean, who knows? We can cross over the universes.
Yeah.
Speaking of crossing over universes, you put a good note in here about something that there's been some discussion about Noah Hawley.
Yeah.
Who produces Fargo and now working on the new Alien show. Are these shows now mutually exclusive of one another? We can only have one and not the other?
I mean, it kind of sounds like this, and I don't know to what degree this is news or something you just kind of figure out on your own, insofar as, of course, Noah Hawley has to figure out how he is spending his time and so on and so forth. But it really does sound like, with some interview snippets from the exec at FX, that they're thinking, well, we have this Alien show in the works. We hope it's good. We hope we keep making multiple seasons of that.
Yeah.
And so who knows if there'll be more Fargo. Yeah. But it does seem like they're saying, if Noah Hawley says, hey, I've got an idea for a new season of Fargo, they'll be up for it. So I guess I thought we should on this. We talked about Fargo on the podcast, of course, and I mentioned the Alien show. Maybe particularly with regard to Fargo, it really does sound from this like it's a open question whether there will ever be any more, and the answer might be no.
Yeah, that would be disappointing to me, as much as a fan I am of the Alien franchise, and think that Noah Hawley could do a good job with that property. I mean, let's do the True Detective model. You got enough of an reputation and anthology built up. Give the next Issa Lopez a chance to do a Fargo series if Noah Hawley wants to concentrate only on Alien. I mean, he's kind of labeled himself as just the Fargo guy who understands the sentimentality and that, sort of what needs to be part of that season. But maybe they can find somebody else. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Noah Hawley is one of the few out there who feels like this kind of auteur showrunner, or fashions himself to be such at very least. And I mean, I think it fits. His work's pretty distinctive. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes and how many people are contributing. Lots of people contribute to TV shows, but
Yeah.
between Fargo and then also Legion, you know, there's a way in which his name seems to be attached to the things he works on in big letters. And so, wonder other people. As I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not against what you're saying, hand
Yeah,
off to someone else. Join the Coen brothers as producers, and let someone else run with it and see what they do. That could be cool.
yeah. Why don't we type a couple of Super Bowl loose ends? We have some data from that that's come out this week. It's pretty astounding.
Yeah, what do you think about this ratings news? I mean, they're saying, okay, the Super Bowl is the most watched telecast since the moon landing. That's the headline that I read. Alternately, some put forward the headline, that it's the most watched
Yeah.
scheduled telecast ever.
Then, of course, I've seen since then, the naysayers are saying, "Oh, it's only 37% of the U.S. population." Back then, it was 65% of the U.S. population. Watch the whatever. It's just this is. I mean, frankly, are we surprised when it was these teams, this Taylor Swift effect? I mean, I think we could have predicted this and put some money on it.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess so. It's not super surprising in a way, other than just that the ratings for them to be so high as to be able to say that it's not just the highest watched Super Bowl ever, but the highest watched event at
Yeah.
a scheduled time, highest watched event since the moon landing. Um, Part of me wants to like go poke around the internet until I find some real wild conspiracy theorist who's like, it's the most watched since the moon landing, which didn't happen
Yeah.
because they wanted people to watch it because of Taylor Swift. Like just like some mishmash of different insane kind of conspiracies. That could be kind of entertaining.
Go back and look at
Uh,
the ads that were around that moon landing. Who paid for all of this? Yeah.
the moon landing was staged by, directed by Stanley Kubrick.
Exactly.
But he's such a perfectionist, he had to actually go to the moon to do it. Um, Anyhow, I did watch the Super Bowl. I presume you watched the Super Bowl.
Yes, yes,
Um,
absolutely. I did. Yes.
it
Every
was a good game.
every minute of it. Good game.
Good game. I was sad. I was rooting for the 49ers.
Yeah,
Arizona.
as was I.
Um,
But shocker, my teenage daughter was not. If I know that
oh
would
yeah.
surprise you.
Even more than that, I was rooting for Brock Purdy
Yeah, exactly.
personally. Like to me, Brock Purdy is still a feel good, Mr. Irrelevant makes it to the Super
Yes.
Bowl story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, and then of course there's the ads during the Super Bowl. We
Yes.
need to talk about the ads.
Something grabbed me. I mean, obviously the movie trailers get all the hype and get all the buzz, and we got several new things there. Deadpool and Wolverine got all of this hype. We got a Quiet Place trailer. All these interesting trailers. Only two shows got trailers during the Super Bowl. Knuckles, the Paramount Plus Sonic animated spinoff that sure, they've had a couple of successful movies and should be fine. And then I was kind of surprised that, speaking of FX spent $7 million to promote Shogun, which comes out later this month.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was to pick a show that was coming out, maybe there just aren't many options, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, they're all in on this show.
Clearly, they want it to be their Game of Thrones,
Yes, I think so.
right? Like, I think that's, if we can still put it that way, which probably they do in their own meetings. Um, I did also see some stuff. The FX guy, I should have his name at the ready, and I don't. Apologies to FX head of programming guy. I'm referring to multiple times. Well, I don't remember his name. But I was seeing where he also said something like, "Well, we need to find new hits. Shows are ending, shows are wrapping up. It's the end of peak TV." Where this is the same guy I think who coined the phrase peak TV. I really should know his name. Apologies. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's what they're going for. I don't know. The show looks fairly cool, I guess. I mean, are you excited for this one?
I'm on the fence. I mean, I suppose if I don't have really anything else in the queue, I would check this out. I just have so much, I guess, what I would label as genre television that I'm trying to keep up on, and so many things to keep it in mind. This is just not doesn't jump out to me, but I guess I understand your point that FX sort of wants its genre hit, a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones type adventure, and maybe this will be it. I can't say I'm dying for it to come out.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. I'm sure it'll be pretty good. Is the
Yeah,
thing like that's probably going to be entertaining. It's probably going to be worth watching. It'll be really interesting to see how popular it is and
yeah.
and all of that. Once it does come out, as you say, they did spend however much money, millions of dollars for a Super Bowl ad.
$700 million to let us know it's coming. So they are they are all in. All right, one more thing here before we move on. Did you
Yeah,
catch Jon Stewart this
I
week?
did.
All right,
Did
I did.
you watch it?
I did. I did watch it. I found it interesting that he is he made no one happy after this show because he's doing what he did 8 years ago, which is basically going out. In 2016, he was talking about how bad both Trump and Clinton were. Now he goes on, and the first thing he talks about is how bad Biden is as a candidate, and then how bad Trump is as a candidate. Again, your politics are your politics, but he was entertaining, but he's getting it from both sides now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did see a number of people giving positive reviews. I
Yeah,
did see a number of people
certainly.
saying like, "Oh, it's great to see Jon Stewart back on our screens." Like, I didn't realize um how I'd missed his presence as the host of this show.
Mhm.
And I felt that. I did enjoy it, and a mix of nostalgia and whatever at play, and I was entertained, as the
Definitely,
man might
definitely.
ask. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It goes in a different direction to start assessing the politics of it. Certainly I've seen criticisms because the bit was about the age thing,
Yes, yes.
primarily. And I guess personally, I do share the worry to some degree, which is, I'll clarify. I'm putting political cards on the table here a little bit. I'm not so much worried about Biden's age as I am worried about people being worried about Biden's age.
Yes.
So, like, I can feel where some of those critiques are coming from the Democrats.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just have to say, like, you can't just tell people to shut up. That's not how it works. You have to. Jon Stewart in his bit is fundamentally right. You have to actually do something to address it or get people to forget about it or move forward. Right? You can't just say, "Oh, he's sharp as a tack in all of our meetings." As Stewart quipped on the program. Do you have video of that? Because maybe
Yeah,
you
exactly.
should, show that. So I think he has a point. I don't know what I think overall. It was really interesting. It was cool to see him back. And then I proceeded to not watch it the rest of the week.
No.
So
And this is exactly what happened. They had their highest ratings in 5 years. It was I mean a huge swell of audience in that first day, which I presume it will be every Monday for the rest of this year. And then yeah, they get their assortment of other anchors, as it were, to cover this show, and it's the rest of us just fine. Everybody's going to tune in on Mondays.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it'll ultimately suck me into more. It's also the case though that I'd kind of stopped watching The Daily Show for a while. I did watch it with Trevor Noah at the beginning. I thought, okay,
Mhm.
I'll give this guy a chance, and I had that kind of habit of watching The Daily Show. I continued for a while. And then I just kind of stopped at some point. And I don't know if it's because they stopped putting it on Hulu or if I canceled my Hulu or what, but it's not on Hulu, I don't think anymore. It's on Paramount Plus
Only
if
on
you want to
Paramount.
stream it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. He'll continue to get good ratings the rest of this year, and then who knows if he'll continue after that. But just found it interesting that they wanted more viewers, and at least for one night a week, they're going to get them.
They got him,
I
you
got
know.
them. So, what else
Um,
besides Daily Show are you catching up on these days?
let's go to in terms of what I'm watching. So I mentioned The Floor, however many weeks ago, right? And they're like game shows. And I continue to watch the floor. One episode comes out a week, and I have to wait for it and so on. And this kind of led me to start saying, like, what other game shows are on here? Because I want to watch a game show. So I checked out this show called Snake Oil. You ever see this? You ever hear of this?
I've never heard of this. I purposely did not look it up, and I was just trying to predict what snake oil was.
What do you think it is? This is going to be a
Game,
fun game.
game show did not jump into my.
It's a game show.
That did not jump into my register. I assumed it was some kind of like, you know, dark drama about a sort of back alley fixer or something that, he's sort of works with people to, I don't know, to get things done, but that's doesn't sound like where we're going with this.
No, not at all. You're familiar with the phrase, the idiom, as it were, snake oil?
Yes.
So this show is hosted by David Spade,
Oh God. Okay.
who doesn't seem terribly excited to be there. But he's fine, and that's kind of his bit anyway. And I don't know if it's great. I was in the first episode I watched, I was a little unsure about it, and then I decided to watch more, and I kind of got into it more. The basic setup is, so they have contestants. They pair each contestant with a celebrity advisor, as it were. It's like, because
Okay.
Rob Riggle knows about business or whatever. And then they have products, some of which are fake and some of which are real, right? So
Okay.
the fake ones are the snake oil. And basically the contestants have to determine which product's fake and which one's real. And they have people on stage that they can ask questions. And the thing I wasn't sure about at first is they have infomercials for the products, but the infomercials are all fake. They're all produced by the show.
Boy.
So that just is more of a conceit for entertainment value. You can't read into the infomercial. But
So snake oil salesman. Okay, I'm getting we've reached the end of ideas, have we not? I don't.
it's kind of like Shark Hunt, but some of the products are fake, and the point is to figure out what products are fake. And I don't know. I found it to be watchable. Ultimately, I kind of
Okay.
got on board with the fact that the infomercials are really comedy sketches, and that's just what they are.
Yes.
You can't decide anything based on that. And then the game is, again, you try to figure out whether the one product or the other is the fake product. And so, of course, the real products are also outlandish. Like they're finding real products or services or whatever that are on the line of where you think, I don't know, that might be fake. Like
give me an example of one that was real then.
See, I can't even remember. Like, was the whiskey made with venison real? I think it was. But like it is often like kind of on the line where you're not generally positive,
I see. Okay.
but you make an informed guess, they make an informed guess, and then
So I guess David Spade's talk show must have gotten canceled or something for him to be doing this.
I guess I don't know for sure. And I don't know if they're going to make more snake oil. There's a whole season on Hulu,
Okay.
and that's it. So anyway, what about you?
Oh,
What have you been watching?
boy. Yeah, now just continuing going back through a couple of shows. I'm on the 5th season of Game of Thrones, so I'm getting near the end of the good stuff. I am moving through Friday Night Lights, and then we had episode 2 of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which this past week, holy moly. I'm going to presume that you haven't seen it.
I should just start watching it.
Okay, so I'll just say, for those who've seen it, I will never look at lawn jockeys the same way again. There's my 5-word summary of this episode.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, this show just I watch it and I think, gosh, this was episode 2, so there's probably 8 left. And every time it finishes, I think this is too much at its peak right now to be ending.
Yeah.
Like, it's too good to end. But man, it continues to deliver every week.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I should just get over the idea that I have to quote unquote catch up because I'm
Yeah.
not going to find time to do that. I should
Yeah.
just start watching the final season so I can,
Yeah.
be with
There's a little
the
piece
world as
of
it ends.
something that's carried over from season 11. It's not that important. Um, but yeah, if you want to power through 11 and then catch up on these two, like I said, they're 31 minutes each, right? So
Right.
it's not a heavy lift.
I could read up about what I missed or whatever. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
concerned with spoilers. It is very weird to me. We're going to talk about True Detective very soon, but like I saw something also this week that was saying that part 5 had the highest rating so far. Okay, but like, are there people who just jumped in with episode 5? Bizarre. Man. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
this
mean,
rating
there's
piece
got to
of
be
it.
there's got to be some people who yeah read to catch up or something and say, oh, I want to be involved when the finale comes around. I want to be
I
part of
think
that.
they must be just calculating the ratings within the
Yeah,
window of
the
the
window.
premiere weekend or week or whatever when they
Yeah, I
get
saw
those
that one
numbers.
point. I think these things calculate like air date plus 3 or something like that. Something that captured it within 3 days.
Yeah. Beyond that, I started watching Constellation. Now we're going to talk about Constellation on the podcast. Um, it's not out yet. It comes out on Wednesday, the 21st. So starting next week, we're going to start digging into that. And can't say too much here because the show's not out yet, but it did pass the date for preseason reviews. So
Hmm.
you can say something. I think it's good. And they're starting out with 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing I wanted to say is just to people who are thinking about watching this show or maybe start watching it. This is one where I really did kind of think that the 3 episode premiere makes sense. And it kind
Oh,
of wasn't until the end of the 3rd episode that it really got its hooks in me, but it did by the end of that 3rd hour.
interesting. Okay, yeah. So I mean, I think I told you I have the screeners for this now. I'm going to power through. We will be podcasting about the first 3 episodes. I'm trying to just do a quick scan now to see if we know how many episodes will be in the season. But that's good to know. You and I.
I think they're only 8 overall.
Okay.
Um,
You and I have mixed feelings about, well, we're aligned on the fact that, dumping a whole bunch at once is not our favorite thing to do, but it's good to know it makes sense that they're doing it that way.
yeah, and I mean, I also do have this kind of stodgy view that you should be able to get the work done in 1 episode in order to hook us.
Yeah.
Um, but okay. Um, they're premiering 3 the first week. I mean, I thought it was good from the beginning. I was entertained enough,
Yeah.
but it was kind of it kind of operates without giving you as much as you might want in terms of bearings. And getting into episode 3 and the end of episode 3, I felt like, okay, I kind of feel like now I realize what the show's about, and I'm starting to formulate the right questions. So I think it's good. We'll talk about it down here. Hopefully, people will watch along with us and listen to the podcast each week as we work through Constellation on Apple TV Plus.
All right. Well, before we get there, let's finish up True Detective Night Country.
All right. Yes. So True Detective Night Country, season 4, episode 6, aka part 6. As per usual, we'll pop in a little music here on the other side of that interlude. Spoilers on the table now for all of True Detective Night Country through the finale, and also potentially elements of previous seasons of True Detective. So we'll see you in about 10 seconds.
All right. Welcome back. Again, talking about the finale of True Detective Night Country, part 6. Spoilers ahead for the finale. This episode directed by Issa Lopez. Everything that I can find says written by Issa Lopez. That's what IMDb says. The official page does not list a writer, but we believe this is also written by Issa Lopez. We start off part 6, where part 5 ended, with Danvers and Navarro set off to explore the ice caves they learned about from Otis, while Pete stays behind at Danvers' house to clean up the 2 dead bodies of Otis and his father. and a whole lot of blood he's got to take care of. I have some notes later about his cleaning abilities and some things that he uses, so we'll get there. But I have some advice for him. Um, Pete does have to enlist Rose to help get rid of his dad's body, which he's very coy about this, but somehow him being coy about some dangerous thing he has to do makes Kayla want him to come back. So they're going to try to reconcile after he dumps some bodies, very romantic thing.
Yeah.
While at the caves, both Danvers and Navarro fall through the ice, thinking that they are stuck, but they actually end up in an area that's been set up as part of a research station that tunnels back through to the Salal station. While in these tunnels, they find Raymond Clark, track him back to Salal, where they eventually capture him. They tie him up and just mercilessly torture him with audio of Annie and then beat him until he gives a confession. He does come clean about the whole story about Annie. Annie found that station that was proving the increased pollution from the mine could help the likelihood that the Salal researcher would succeed in their work being done on some of these microorganisms that would help with diseases and the like. Annie destroys all this research and what she finds, but the other men find her, capture her eventually after they really do a number on her. Clark is the one who inevitably does kill her. After learning this news, Navarro does kill Raymond Clark. There's a bit of a sort of brief falling out between Danvers and Navarro, but Danvers wakes up. She can't find Navarro. She tracks her outside. We believe she's either having some sort of hallucination or seeing something that she's going after. She tracks her outside, and Danvers falls through the ice into the water. Navarro is able to save her. She helps her warm up. The two begin to repair their bond that was fractured so many years ago. In this moment, Navarro tells Danvers about her visions of Danvers' son, Holden. The two discover, after going back in to try to find out what happened to the men at Salal, they discover some handprints on the opening to the tunnels, which leads them to the group of native women in town. In a series of flashbacks, we learn that those women were the ones responsible for attacking the men at Salal, forcing them to go outside, forcing them to strip off their clothes, putting them out in the tundra where they all froze to death. They eventually do find Clark as well. Danvers, Navarro, and Pete successfully are able to cover up the bodies that they have left all over Ennis. And we flash forward to May after the long night is over, where they seem to have successfully evaded any suspicion about wrongdoing, suspicion about these deaths. And the last thing we see is Navarro hiding out of what looks like a lake property that belongs to Danvers, left open to our interpretation of what happened to the two of them. Did they reconcile? Are they both okay? What is their future? Left open to our interpretation. This is a lot. This was a 75-minute runtime for this finale. So where should we begin?
Yeah. As you say, left open to interpretation. So that'll be interesting to talk about. But let's hold off on that a little bit. Part of why we're saying this to everyone who's listening is we seem to have interpreted it in different ways. So,
I think so.
we'll talk it through. I think that'll be a good bit. Maybe start with thoughts on the runtime. I mean, as you mentioned, it's 75 minutes. Did it feel to you like it needed to be 75 minutes?
It felt to me like maybe it needed to be 7 or 8 episodes. I saw some rumblings around that maybe this once used to be 8 episodes. Try to trim it down. So they fit a lot into this 75 minutes. I think there's a little bit of fluff, a little bit of stuff that could have been trimmed around the edges. It seemed like maybe there was some repetition, particularly as they were in the station, sort of doing the same things over again. So yeah, I could have seen this sort of expanding or trimming expanding significantly or trimming it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah. My primary thought was it could have been tightened up.
Yeah.
And that they were just, giving them 75 minutes. They wanted 75 minutes. And maybe this is one of those instances where it would have been good if the network had been like, you need to get to 60 minutes, and then maybe let them have 65 or something. Just because some of the scenes were very protracted, some of the dialogue kind of went further than it needed to. It was like, okay, I get the point. You don't need to keep saying things back and forth. These are minor quibbles. I always like to get my minor quibbles out of the way first,
Yeah.
But I did have that on this where I was kind of like, I don't really think this needed to be 75 minutes. Now, as you say, you could have expanded things out further. I could see that as well. We wanted to do a whole nother episode or two.
Yeah, one
Particularly since
one
we didn't hit on, some of the characters. They just don't show up.
yeah, that's one of the things I wish that, if there had been an extra episode or two, what happened with Kovic? All he does is get his toothbrush back, and what happened to him? Where
Yep.
were Connolly and Kate in this episode? They're like masterminds behind some sort of conspiracy. What's happening to them? It looks like the mine closed, but what's the ramifications? Is Connolly the mayor now of this town? Right? We had nothing in that in this episode, so I would have appreciated sort of some trimming or some. Let's really sort of blow this up a little bit more and get some depth of this stuff.
Yeah, the way that there's the time jump towards the end covers over where you would have gotten a further confrontation between Danvers and Connolly, between Danvers and Kate. We don't actually see the fallout of the Clark video, which is given to us after the time jump, with the implication that the mine is closed and so on in the intervening period. Yeah, I mean, you could have expanded that out a bit, and I would have been all for it. Equally, in a way, I did think it was important for us to mention the stuff about Holden.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, because the finale ties up that thread, basically. But overall, I don't know that I feel like that did a whole lot of work in this story. What about you?
Yeah, I think that I really went back and forth on this one specific point. Did I need to see what happened to him, what happened to her, to Danvers' spouse or partner, or what was the immediate effects of that happening? Why does Holden continue to appear to Navarro, just a sort of a messenger back to Danvers? Okay. And so,
But
yeah, I've come on, you go back and forth on that a lot.
the messenger back to Danvers, but the message is, I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a lot to that.
I think if you're going to make this 7 or 8 episodes, this is a key thing that needs to be a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, there's some moments like she steps on the glass and kind of has a flashback. There's some other kind of weird stuff. Like I think there's a hubcap rolling down the hallway at the small station at one point.
Yes.
But that, along with the oranges, kind of just feels like vibes.
Yeah, it did feel like vibes. I saw somebody wrote something interesting about the end, the last thing you see every week in the opening credits is a picture of like the key moment of the episode. So like in part 5, it was the area where Hank and Kate go and meet and talk about or what they did. But this one, it was this hubcap rolling through and falling on the ground. So again, maybe not the most important part of the episode, but something that you're going to want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And this was, we understand, okay, Holden and I guess Danvers' spouse died in some kind of drunk driving accident. That's why she was so passionate, angry about it back in part 1. But did it do enough? Did the spiral that we see on the ice, the spiral we see the orange, do enough to? I think we talked about how that would likely be left open to interpretation, but just either give it to us or not give it to us.
Or it's just vibes, and the vibes work.
Yeah.
But I mean, so it doesn't bother me a whole lot. Like all the stuff with the oranges. The oranges are this recurring signifier that kind of doesn't really point to anything, right? There's no real signified, as it were. Like what is the orange doing? I'm fundamentally okay with that, I guess. It's just
yeah, like we predicted this. We talked about how there would be, I think we were using the word terrestrial answers, just for the mysteries we needed to solve. The things that have been through lined from season 1 all the way to now, right? We don't get anything about Tuttle. We don't get anything about sort of really the origin or what these spirals mean or do. We got sort of what they symbolize to people, but some of these things that they're likely going to be bringing up season to season are left open to, we want to have more of it, so we're not going to give you everything.
Yeah, it's not super surprising. I guess the point with the Holden stuff ultimately was to be, on the one hand, to kind of symbolize Danvers' trauma, as it were, or something like that. Why is she hurt and broken? Why is she the way that she is? And I guess we were supposed to take her as kind of healing or coming around to a peace of mind or ability to move forward in light of what happened and in light of the conversation with Navarro. In light of, I mean, do you agree that that's kind of how it was supposed to go?
Yeah, I think that that was certainly a device for that to happen. I think we have the identical reads on that part in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess I'm saying, maybe I'm just saying, I don't know how well it worked for me.
Yeah.
Ultimately, how well that landed. Um, Number of other things to hit on. We mentioned we don't see Kate, we don't see Connolly. We do again see, when they get back into Salah, Ferris Bueller's on the TV again. What's that about?
Yeah. I think that this was a question I had sort of mentally prepared for you. Do we have an explanation of exactly why we get so much twist and shout? Was that playing during Holden's accident? Do we know that? Is that just left open to our interpretation as well?
I think it was pretty left open.
Yeah.
We speculated that Danvers really hates the song or hates the Beatles for a reason related to that,
Mhm.
and I don't know that that was confirmed. Um,
I don't think it was.
we had the song popping up a few times, as we noted,
Mhm.
that Wheeler was whistling it. It was in the end credits of part four. I think it was
Yep.
in the end credits of part four, the cover version. And again, the scenes on the TV.
Yeah.
Does Raymond Clark just really like that scene? Like, is he watching it on repeat on purpose? Is that our explanation here?
I think that, and maybe we should have picked up on this from the very first few moments of part one, that this whole this whole area, this whole show, this whole, sort of long night just sort of sets up this sense of disorientation. To have something like that that's kind of that visceral on repeat over and over and over and over again reminds me of, like, the scenes in Lost where they would put people in front of the screens. They were trying to do cognitive therapy on them. They would force their eyes open to watch this stuff. It's sort of like Clark's gone off the deep end. So he's just going to keep showing himself this thing over and over. I have no idea if it's anywhere near that or if it has something to do with Danvers' past or both. But yeah, one of these things where we're going to have to just speculate what we think.
Yeah, indeed. Um, we do get an explanation of what happened.
Yes.
And I did want to, I kind of feel the need to note, I sort of called it.
He sort of called it.
I'm going to claim,
By she, you mean lots of she's.
well, and no, I mean I don't know, what I had in mind in particular. If you recall, when we were talking about the very first episode, one of the notes I made was, I feel like the stuff about the polluted water is going to be central to the mystery and a clue to
Yeah.
unlocking it. That's what I had in mind. It was like, I was right
Yeah.
when I said to pay attention to that.
I am the farthest thing you can find from a scientist. I would love to know who consulted on this, that pollution can make the permafrost such that the microbiology work. I mean, how in the world does that? Sure. Okay, I'll accept it.
I didn't even attempt to do any research on this. I just presume this is totally made up.
Exactly.
This is just totally made up. It's a premise, but maybe there is something, maybe
Yeah.
there was some inspiring article published or something like that. Maybe we should have looked into it or tried to, but the ultimate idea that they could only get this microbe out because
Yeah.
of the pollution, that seems totally made up to me.
It softened up the permafrost so it allowed them to dig to find. I was like, well, why don't you just anyway? I won't
And we
pretend to.
get this is another thing we don't get any resolution about, really, because according to the scientists, this microbe or whatever could, like, cure all disease in the world,
Good job,
cool,
Danvers. Good
cool,
job, Annie. You ruined that.
cool stuff like that. But no, Annie destroyed the first batch, but they got more. So I don't think that got destroyed unless they
That's
destroyed it
true. That's true.
afterwards.
hopefully some benefactor, maybe the Tuttle Corporation has saved all the good things, and will, they'll go cure all of humanity now for the work being done.
That is a question, that so they've gotten this through immoral means. I
Yes.
presume we're all agreed on that. Is it then like, is it okay to use their research? I mean, there are real world correlates here, like if the scientific research was done by the Nazis, should be
Yep.
something like, well, we can't pay attention to that because those were Nazi scientists, it can be the real
I'm gonna
world.
let that one just dangle out there. Let you have that comment.
Oh, I don't have a line on it. I mean, that could be like maybe like a whole session of a healthcare ethics, course or something like that as a question. But I did think of it here. And I guess it is something to ponder, each in your own mind, when we
Yeah.
learn Annie destroyed their research.
Yes.
Um, how do you feel about that, as
Yeah.
it were, right? Because there is a certain point. Someone like Clark has a point to some degree
Hmm.
that, hey, this is really valuable research. Shutting down the mine and stopping the pollution is one thing.
Yeah.
Destroying the research that came from the way they were enabling the pollution is potentially
Yeah.
a separate thing as a question. That's what I'm trying to kind of
Yeah. We just
note
were,
to
I mean,
people.
you know this. We're opening up the trolley car problem. We're opening up the, Kirk versus Spock. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. How you get there is is less important. This is, Annie stumbled on some important topics here.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying go ahead and pollute and kill babies so that you
Right.
can do that. No, I mean some could make that argument. I'm not making that argument. I'm just posing the question of, well, they've already done it,
Yes.
and now you've got their research. Is there a problem with using that research that was gotten immorally, or should we instead be like, well, we got the research, we should run with it?
Yep. I, it's a question
Question.
and it's a question they pose. It's a question that, yeah, deserves discussion, but different podcast probably.
Yeah, I just wanted to pose the question. A number of questions are kind of left open though. The one that probably bothered me the most was the tongue.
I really, especially when we saw her looking at the ground and what looked like there's still some residue on the ground from the tongue
Yeah,
that's here. First of all, how was that still there? Second of all, it sounds like maybe Hank cut out the tongue when he moved the body as a way to maybe throw the scent off of what happened there. But then, Raymond says they didn't do that. So who else could it have been?
but that's not even the full question. Let's say Hank did cut her
Yeah.
tongue out when he moved the body. How did it get into Salal 6 years later?
Yeah, exactly. I guarantee you, obviously, we're recording this before this comes out. There is going to be an interview that comes out next week with Issa Lopez that someone's going to ask this question. We're going to see if she tries to answer it, if she deflects it. But yeah, this is a question we have to. This was the thing that opened the door in part one to, well, something is really wrong in this in Alaska. Okay, you got all the men, they're dead, right? But why is there then a random woman's tongue inside their station? Yeah, it's like, did he keep it in his pocket as a, souvenir? Was Hank ever there? I have no answers.
She's not going to tell us. Someone might ask her in an interview, but she's not going to tell us. At least I hope she doesn't.
Yeah.
I think that would be lame. But I would expect if someone does ask her, she'll say something like, well, some things just remain a mystery.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and that's what you should say, because if you wanted to answer this question, you should have done it in the show.
Yeah.
The scene here in the finale that you reference is interesting in being there, because it's like further confirmation that, yeah, no, that tongue really was there. Look, there's still some residue.
Remember? Yeah.
I find myself wondering, I was like, well, what is that residue? But I mean, maybe it's just saliva or whatever. But the fact that it's a tongue from 6 years ago.
Why is it still wet? Why is it leaving a residue? Again, how did it get there? And yeah, if this is Chekhov's tongue, like why are we going back and referencing where it was? if we're not going to have any sort of resolution to that.
Yeah, but it's not Chekhov's tongue, or at least if you want to make that reference, Issa Lopez has violated the rule. She's violated Chekhov's rule, which is right. That's where this comes from. Chekhov says if you introduce a gun in the first act, it has to go off by the third act or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
No, you introduce the tongue in the first act, and just a mystery.
Yeah, just a mystery tongue. We'll never know. We'll never know. I had a couple other quibbles just in things that maybe that not necessarily that weren't tied up, but that just didn't sit right with me. First of all, we got to get Pete some help with the cleanup. I mean, he's like smearing blood on the mirrors and the walls. I mean,
Ryan, I Googled that Formula 409 does a good job cleaning up blood. So I don't know what your problem is.
But he has like a third of a bottle of it. I mean, he's just like got one sponge. It's not going to go well. And I don't know how they escaped from all this.
He ultimately seemed to do a good job.
Yeah,
I think you're right. You need way more.
Need some industrial cleaner, some bleach, something.
There's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
What do you do with all that blood? You use the one sponge. You got to wash out that sponge all the time. So yeah, the presentation is not exactly realistic. And then what was stuck on the wall? Was that a bullet? It was like kind of weird.
It could have been a bullet. I mean, at one point I thought it was a tooth. I mean, yeah, I bet it was a bullet or a bullet fragment or something.
It was kind of weird because when he pulled it off, then the wall looked fine.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that it was a bullet that had hit the wall, but then when you pulled it off, you wouldn't think the wall would look just fine underneath it. So
yeah. Well, this does one reason why I think you could get away with this goes back to another one of my sort of little questions about this show is I don't get the impression, particularly if if Danvers is in charge of this investigation, okay, well, we know how that's going to go. If it's not, I don't think there's great like detectiving being done in this show, except by Pete. Pete is the one always uncovering the truth, finding the thing online, got to the bottom of the tax returns. I mean, really, I think the only important thing that Danvers and Navarro do, particularly in this last episode, is notice the handprint with the three fingers. Like that leads them somewhere. But their detective work is relied on a heroin junkie that leads them somewhere where they fall through the ice. That was the extent of it.
That's true, because it was also Pete who discovered Otis in his research as someone who had similar injuries to the slaw researchers.
Pete's on top of it, and I guess if Peter and Danvers are responsible for the investigation of what happened to Hank, then hey, no problem to cover it up.
Pete's the true detective.
That's right. Good night, folks. That's
yeah, that's it. Yeah, but then you did get me thinking about, okay, well, who's going to be investigating what happened to Hank?
Yeah, this is a police department that has like 3 people, except when there's a protest in the mine, and then they have access to like a full riot squad somehow, on Christmas Eve to put that down.
The state troopers, I guess they were. I mean, I guess we do get an answer of who's investigating. It's the internal affairs guy at the end who's interviewing Danvers.
Exactly.
But it definitely overall definitely feels like they're getting away with it. The mine's been shut down through the magic of the I don't know. I don't want to be too glib here. This is a trope in a lot of things. So you've got the Clark video, right, which apparently Navarro must have taken in between when he basically said he wanted to die, right? So I think it must have been in between that and when he did die.
Yeah, that's my read on it.
Yeah. So I mean, you said in our summary that she killed him. I think that's fair, but it also did seem he wanted to die, so there's a wrinkle there, and maybe this was the deal. Like, okay, I'll kill you or let you die if you first record this video that explains what was going on with the pollution, slaw, the mine's involvement, and all of that.
I think that's an extremely fair and probably accurate assumption of what happened. Yeah, that was how I took it.
I think that's right, but that's not the trope. The trope is because this video was released, no more problems. They shut down the mine. no more pollution at least,
Yeah.
or what
Yeah.
have you.
And as you said, there's a whole, I mean, decades worth of valuable research there that is now just what, sitting there or rotting away, or someone else has it. We don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess my point is just that in the real world, things are far messier. There
Yeah.
would be a question about what happens to the research. There would be ways in which Kate and so on pushed back and the mine pushed back. And,
Yeah.
a lot of messy details where you often get this kind of thing, which I didn't really expect from this show, as we mentioned
Mhm.
last week. This is about as close to a happy ending as possible with regard to the pollution stuff, at least.
Yeah.
That because this video was released, it had that effect.
Yeah.
Or
And
that things went that simply in the real world, I guess is all I'm saying.
yeah. And I think that this is one of the clear areas where this was definitely a part of this story that Issa Lopez had, particularly as sort of the win for the locals, the natives of this area. This had to have been sort of the resolution all along, that she was able to craft a detective story around it. This was the point she wanted to get to, where there could be that for we won scenario for the women, the people that are native to that area.
Yeah, or I'm sure at least her original idea was about the slow men, how they died, and the solution being that it was the native women who came in and killed them once they found out what they've been doing in order to pollute the water and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And all of that works. So let's talk about Navarro a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she has the visions of Holden. I want to start there because you put in the notes that she can see the dead, right? It's not hallucinations. So
No.
that's your read on all of this.
It is. I think it's now my read that is an ability, or whatever you want to call it, for Navarro, that also her sister and mother shared. There was a sense of the mother and sister didn't know how to deal with it, come to grips with what was happening to them, what they're seeing, why they're seeing it. I don't want to say that Navarro is, that she's Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense, that she sort of has a purpose for seeing these people, but that she can reconcile the fact of where she is and what she is about, and allows her to be able to do this. And she can be this sort of interlocutor for some ways for the dead and the living in this in
Yeah.
this area where the barrier is so thin between the two.
Yeah. I mean, it seems pretty well grounded with regard to the Holden stuff because the
Mhm.
clear indication is that she never met Holden and should not have any idea what he looks like or
Yeah.
anything like that. I think it's still ambiguous if you don't want to take that conclusion. She had some visions of some kid that she thought was Holden, and maybe it was all a hallucination. Still, I think you could read it that way still.
Yeah.
In the comments on YouTube, actually, we were asking in the one about who they were seeing, like who did Julia see under the bed. At least someone claimed that Julia saw their mother under the bed, and then we know that because of the cross necklace. Maybe that checks out. Then they claimed that at the end of that episode, it was Julia that Navarro saw, which I don't know. It just it didn't
Yeah.
really.
It's hard there's no clear answer to that. I think it's left open ambiguously and purposefully. We don't know exactly what it is she's seeing and why she's seeing it, maybe until this semi-resolution here in the finale of what she's seeing.
Yeah, and what does it mean?
Yeah.
So if it was her mother, let's say, okay, no, actually, this is good. I've got a line that just occurred to me. Go back to the Wheeler case, because that was
Mhm.
another one. Maybe that was her mother. What does it signify? Well, we've learned from the backstory that um, their father was abusive,
Yes.
right? That got in there. And they indeed, their mother took them to Alaska to get away from the abusive father. So here you have Wheeler, a similarly abusive man who's just killed his wife and so on. And we do learn in the finale that it was Navarro who shot him in the head.
Yeah. So maybe the mother is there sort of presiding over or giving permission for that to happen, because, this is what we do to people like this.
Got to do something about it. Yeah, I mean, I suppose. Bigger question is, okay, so what happens to Navarro? And it seems like we interpreted this in different ways as we watched the episode. You think she's alive and hiding out? Is that's your read?
I think so. We have no indication that, and I think maybe to do this sort of frame by frame in this final scene of the episode, no indication that Danvers can see or commune with or have any sort of appreciation for someone who's there with her who is dead, like Navarro could.
Right, but they also don't interact, as I
They
recall.
don't
Danvers is sitting
interact.
there, and it's like Navarro walks out behind her onto the veranda or porch
Yeah.
or whatever.
And I took that as sort of as just for the first time in 6 or 7 years, they have some peace, right?
Yeah.
There's no necessarily contradiction. There's nothing to keep them apart. There's nothing to fracture them. They just have peace together. And that Danvers is sort of hiding her out there, or she's staying there whilst, things sort out a little bit.
Yeah, so maybe here's the question, because I read this making inferences along the way, I guess. I think it is not entirely clear. But what do we see? I think we do see Navarro walking out into the cold. Well, whatever. Maybe she's just out for a walk. Fine. But we see Danvers finding the polar bear on Navarro's bed, which has been stripped of its sheets and so on. Underneath the polar bear is the phone that has the Clark video on it. We see Kavik finding his SpongeBob SquarePants toothbrush that she's giving back to him.
Yeah.
All of this read to me like someone who was tying up all of the loose ends before suicide.
Yeah. I will say, when I saw the toothbrush and the fact that, oh, we're actually not going to get any Kavik and Navarro back together again, I did have the thought of, yeah, this is sort of symptomatic of someone who's giving away their things, who is saying their final goodbyes, who is taking steps towards my, where I want to be is with the people I can't be with anymore, sister, mother, all those that have gone before her. So I can certainly see the read there. And again, ask Isa Lopez, but she's going to say, what do you think? It's your choice.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I'm on the record. I do not want the showrunner to answer questions outside of what we get. If it's ambiguous, it's ambiguous. But I think this is ambiguous in an interesting way. Now, it is the case that Danvers says something to her prior to this, that if she does go out into the cold on the ice or whatever, please come back, whatever that line is exactly. So maybe, Navarro did all of these things, went and hid out in the ice caves for a while or in the dredges or something.
Yeah.
Until things settled down, and then did kind of sneak back. And then maybe you're right, she really is there. Danvers is hiding her, and either buddies and so on and so forth, right? You could read it that way. But I think particularly since in that last scene, you don't see them interact, the door's open to a reading that this is the ghost of Navarro. And maybe we're really embracing that supernatural element to this degree, that her ghost is really there looking over Danvers, and so on.
Much like her mother and all the people that she saw throughout the course of this series did for her in some way.
Yeah. Although she doesn't look scary.
She doesn't.
So, maybe that's one. Maybe that tips the scales.
Yeah. All right, hold on real quick. Did you jump or were a little scared? Because I'll admit I was when Raymond Clark popped up and they sort of shine the light on him at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, I mean,
that gave me a little jump scare, I will admit.
You get a little bit of that. I mean, this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. My minor quibbles about the runtime and how I thought it could have been a little bit tighter. Part of that is that maybe it was just the mood I was in as I was watching it. But for me, a lot of these scenes felt less tense than they could have been, because they almost felt like they were given too much time or something like that. I don't know if others feel that way at all.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think especially in the conversations with Raymond Clark, it seemed to be the same thing said over and over again.
A little bit of that. Yeah. I think we have something else to hit on, looking at our notes.
I just wanted to make sure we shout out Rose, who's found a very successful second career as like a, body hider, as a fixer, as a, the guy who can get stuff done for the police when they can't do the underhanded stuff themselves. I mean, you just call Rose, I guess.
Yeah, Rose, who at least was the, let's say, paramour of Travis Cole, Russ
Yeah.
Cole's father from season one. This is good. I can seg from this. This was the other thing I had in my notes. Any thoughts on the other callbacks to season one we get in this episode and in Night Country as a whole?
Um, as a whole, I thought they were sparsed out, and I was fine with the connections made for sort of interesting. What can we go learn from before? Referencing Raymond Clark's Time is a Flat Circle, I hated it. I really hated
Yeah,
it.
I really did. When he said time is a flat circle, I cringed.
Yeah.
I definitely did. I definitely did. That's another thing you can cut. See, we're getting it down to 60 minutes. Yeah, I didn't like that. But there were a number of parallels. I do think, broadly speaking, it was more vibes and Easter eggs, which we thought might be the case. Danvers is being interrogated at the end. Of course, in season one, it's all structured through
Yeah.
that kind of premise of Rust and what's the other guy's name? Marty
Marty.
being interrogated. You did have the fact in season one that Rust had a daughter who was killed in a car accident. Here you've got Danvers, whose son was killed in a car accident. There's all sorts of stuff, of course, the
Yeah.
spirals and mentions of Tuttle and
Some of those
Travis
things, some of those
Cole.
things I thought were a way to pay homage to that. Some of them were going to try to connect the universe. Um, and on the whole, some of them worked better than others for me. I like the paying homage more than I like the we got to make sure you see enough spirals in this series.
Yeah, and they could have maybe done a little bit more of the spiral. I mean, I don't know. And the Tuttle organization thing is okay, but like
Just
you
a
need to
throwaway
start.
line at this point.
Yeah,
There's nothing there. Yeah.
I mean, I might have liked a little bit more to suggest that behind the scenes, there's an evil organization that wants to get this stuff out of the permafrost so they can do nefarious bad things with it.
Yeah.
And I just said that, but I feel a little bit like I made it up. I mean, it almost is there, you
Yeah.
know?
There's your tension between what they discovered. If it was sort of it's on a razor's edge of we put it in the right hands could do good, if we put it in the hands of the Tuttle organization, it could be bad, that type of thing.
Yeah, you flesh that out a little bit more. They're going to make, super soldiers, or I don't know, X-Files reference. So the grand dropped X-Files plot line of the
Yeah.
last two original seasons where they're like, they're making super soldiers, and then they revive the X-Files and they just drop that.
That's right.
Um, I think that about does it. Anything else we
Yeah.
want to hit on
Wow,
here?
this is man, we've hit on a lot, and I'm glad we've gone through this together. This was a very good show to talk through. I will have a piece coming out Sunday when this episode ends. Try to get some thoughts together and put something coherent together off of a lot of information.
Yes, people should look out for that, read that. Well, or it'll be out. By the time you can listen to this podcast, it'll be out. So go to TVObscast.com. Be sure to read Brian's recap. And yeah, I mean, I agree. It's been great talking through the show with you, and I have enjoyed it a lot. I know I presented some criticisms here, but so it goes. It doesn't mean the show is bad. I thought the show was actually really
Yeah.
quite good. I really enjoyed watching it each week, thinking about it, and talking about it with Ryan on the podcast. Hopefully, you all have enjoyed listening along with us. From here, we're going to go to Constellation on Apple TV Plus. This will be the first show on Apple TV Plus, hopefully. If it's not on your radar, we'll take our recommendation to check it out and listen to the podcast as we talk about Constellation. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how well the show lands, how popular it is, how interested people are in reading about it, listening to podcasts about it, and so on and so forth. Apple TV Plus has a good amount of science fiction. It seems to vary a little bit, though, how much there is going on in terms of engagement with it.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I'm going to plow through this weekend and look forward to talking with you about it next week.
Good deal. So we'll be back next Friday. Will be the plan on that. Constellation comes out on Wednesday. Our current plan is to record and publish the podcast on Friday after it comes out each week. In the meantime, check out TVObscast.com. Check out our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Trying to continue to pump stuff out there in various ways, including little snippets of the podcast. I've started doing that a bit. Hopefully people enjoy that better. And yeah, follow us on social media, TV Obsessive, and we'll see you next week.
All right, looking forward to it. See you then.